So I opened up Twitter and I saw this string. He set the bot to crouch on the second hit. So you look at the settings, action after a hit or block. So he will stand first and then he will try to crouch. This is a low and then a high. If it hits low, you cannot duck the second hit. Now, first to clarify, because I know people are going to ask, if you block the first hit, you can duck the second hit. That hasn't changed. And if you get counter hit by the first hit, the second one is still guaranteed. That hasn't changed either. But I think this is a really bad change. And I'm going to explain why. For one, this is called jailing, if you don't know. Jailing is where a string has a high built into it, and blocking or eating the first hit doesn't let you duck the second hit. Traditionally, jailing refers strictly to blocking the first hit, right? So this isn't technically jailing, but the fact that they changed it so it's no longer duckable is weird. Now, I'm going to explain my tweet. I'm going to read it, and then I'll explain it. Tekken is slowly bending all of the rules of the road that it spent decades building. Adapting isn't the problem I have. That's really important. I don't care that I have to change how I play, right? If I'm doing this professionally, that's my job, is to adjust. I do not care about that. I'm sad that they had an elegant system that you could build experience in and then use that intuition for future choices. Now it's raw knowledge checks. What does that mean? In Tekken, for the longest time, there were really consistent rules, okay? If you had a high, and you could probably duck it, and the move is probably safe on block. If you have a mid, you could block it by standing, and then either it's unsafe, or the reward is so low that it's fine that it's safe. Down forward 1. What the fuck? Low. You usually have to duck it, or jump it, or go over it, right? And it's usually unsafe. Rare cases are fine, but shaking it up everywhere is just chaos. What do I mean by this? When I played Tekken 5 as a kid, and went to Tekken 6, and went to Tekken Tag 2, these rules were so consistent that it didn't matter which character I fought. I could almost guess whether something was unsafe based on the way it was behaving. Like, if it was a middle, and it was a big power mid, and it didn't make me duck or stagger, like, for example, at the end of a string, Jin has like a... or Devil Jin had that laser scraper, like the 2 mids, one is tracking, second one isn't. If you let him just stop, you can actually punish the second hit. If he does the third hit, then it's safe, like pushback. This was something you could figure out by kind of just interacting with the game for a long time. If a move looked really high, like hitting my head, it was probably a high, right? So you can probably assume that you could duck it. And if it's a low, like it's visually hitting your legs. And then the one intuitive thing I love is that if it's a snake edge, you block it and their opponent staggers, right? That is such a useful cue that you're like, oh, I can probably get a big reward here, right? So it became a situation where you could compartmentalize things, right? Let me pull up Tekken 8 because the rules still kind of exist here, and this is like kind of a useful example that I can actually show right here. So let me open this up. I'm gonna use Azucena as an example because she has so many of it. So here is the big thing that makes it really obvious.
Get ready for the next battle.
Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing. Set the bot to standing block and then crouching block. How do you fight against Azucena? I don't know what I'm doing. One advice you can give is duck the high strings. Okay, mid-high. Cool. Mid-high. Cool. Right? Like, you can see that the move is going for Jin's head. So you can probably duck it. Right? What the fuck is this? Why can't you duck that? What the fuck is this? Why can't you duck that? You see what I mean? Like, there's so many consistent situations where you can do it. Why did they just change the rule for these? Now, I understand why they did it. They wanted to make it strong, but why not just make it a mid-mid at that point? right? The idea that I'm complaining about, that's enough to explain what I want to do. Actually, I can show it on Jin too. Jin is a bit more consistent. Give me 1 second. I will set the opponent to controller. All right. So Jin, all of these strings can be ducked. Mid, high. If you don't want to be able to duck it, you make it mid, mid. And what that does for your player on an intuitive level is they start to see a high move and they start to think, can I duck it? And you naturally can build a stronger defensive awareness and understanding without ever opening a tutorial, without ever opening the lab. You could just fight somebody over and over again who throws highs at you. You start to realize, hey, I can duck this. And then you get better and better at ducking every single character that has a mid-high string. That is why this is cool. This is why historically Tekken is so cool. It's not because, oh, this is like so uniform, you know, they need to innovate. That doesn't make any sense to me. The reason it's so cool is because learning one character, how to defend against one character, can let you defend against multiple characters. And that's what I mean by building experience and then using intuition. But now, with things like this, and I will reiterate that this isn't a brand new concept. Laws, Shaolin spin kicks in Tekken 6 used to jail, okay? So if you blocked the first hit, you couldn't duck the second kick, and they were both high. They were jailing combos in Tekken 7, they were jailing combos in Tekken 6. This is not a new concept, but historically, the majority of strings behave similarly, which allows you to build this knowledge, and then you can have a few edge cases, right? But the more you create situations like this, the more you shrink the bucket of things that are consistent, like these are the rules, these are the exceptions. The more you shrink the regular and the more you build up the exceptions, you just don't have a rule anymore. And that is more of a knowledge check. The more you have exceptions to the rule, you have to memorize each individual one. Instead of saying, oh, this is regular, and then these two guys have something different. Does that make sense? Right? That's what I mean by rare cases are fine, but shaking up everywhere is chaos. Let me give another example straight from Tekken 7. I want you to look at this. Now, without the hit spark, and without looking at the initial first move, just look at the kick. Can you visually tell that one kick is a high and the other is a mid super easily? I can't tell the difference. I have to literally pause it to look. Maybe I should tweet it at him. I have to tweet. So like this is his high. Okay. And I can tell because of his body. I can tell because he's doing the headbutt. But if I look at the actual kick. Okay. And that's what I mean. So that's what I'm complaining about. I'm not complaining about the fact that I have to learn something new. I'm willing to learn something new. I'm willing to learn the whole system. What is not cool is, again, shrinking the bucket of consistent rules and increasing the bucket. I'm pretty sure I changed sides like 7 times, but your consistent stuff is getting smaller. Your exceptions, your edge cases are getting bigger. You know what games do that? MOBAs. You like League of Legends? Every character does something different. Every character breaks a different rule. That's by design. You play a card game, this card lets you play from your graveyard. This card lets you play from your deck. This card lets you play your opponent's hand. You know what I mean? Like, this is a card game thing. Do you want Tekken to be a card game? I get why you would. Because if you're the person piloting the deck, it's fun for you. If you pull the fast one over them, they didn't know, get shit on. And that's what I'm saying. Is if you are the attacker, it feels very good. Okay? So let me look at the quote tweets and address this discussion. Okay, let me get back in here. This conversation, I think, is not crazy. Okay, so let me go to the quote tweets. Or actually, let me look at the replies first. I want to say it's an attempt to lower the skill floor ceiling. As bizarre as decisions can be to veterans, I think it comes off as one less thing to know to new players. So, I wasn't super upset because I think he has an idea. I just disagree that that's what it is, right? One less thing to know, no, because it's a new edge case. It's a new unique situation that doesn't apply to the rest of the cast universally. So it's not one less thing to know, it's one more thing to know. Does that make sense? Tekken has always been a knowledge check. Explain more so I understand. I talk about this high, mid, low thing again. But Tekken strings, again, have these universal concepts. Mid, mid, mid is usually unsafe. Let me pull up, let me load up the game again. I will explain something that has been pretty consistent throughout most Tekkens. This will be easier to see on Law because his strings have stayed pretty stable, right? Every string in Tekken traditionally has a weakness. That was why you see people start playing a lot more movement and poke heavy. If you try to do this, wow, he stopped blocking, he crouched. If you try to just do this, what are the weaknesses of this string? Okay, I'm sorry the orange thing is covering the frame data, but you'll have to take my word for it. Minus 14 on the third hit, minus 12 on the second hit. What is the mind game on this string? You can punish from the second hit, but he might finish it, so you might wait. If you wait for the third hit, he gets off scot-free on the first two hits. Why is it punishable in the first place, you might ask? Because it's right out of this jab range, right? If you're out of the range of his lows and his highs and his mids, you can still hit with back one. So Law gets access to a high range move, and the risks are he has to play this punish mind game. That's the risk. And that's the reward you can get as a defender if you defend it properly. This is a traditional thing. Now, that is what I mean by Tekken has always been a knowledge check, true, but if all the strings tend to behave that way, Devil Jin's is very similar. He has the laser scraper, first two hits, unsafe, third hit, you sidestep right. Okay? Actually, I don't know if Jin's behaves similarly. I can't record in Tekken 8, so I can't even test it. But Devil Jin's a good example. Two hit scraper, minus 11, sidestep the last hit of the mid. If all the strings are behaving the same way, then no, it's not a giant knowledge check. You learn one, you've learned them all. Not literally, but you've learned a lot of them. Okay, so, and this is an example where I draw from. I was able to figure this out playing Tekken Tag 2 online. I never went to practice mode except to do my combos, and the only things I read online were like frame data, like how do you punish minus 10, how do you punish minus 15. That's cool, isn't it? Is that not cool that you can fight one character and you can tell somebody, or you can figure out in your head, oh, that's his 3-hit string. This is how you handle that. Maybe there's a few differences, like you go left against one character, you go right against another character. But it's generally the same. Now it's the Wild West. He has a high in the string that might be unblockable. The high in the string might hit you low. This mid might look like a high. That was really good timing. I can't believe that came up at that exact time. You see what I mean? Anyways, okay, let's keep reading. Omchi, it's a new game 30 plus years later. They should innovate to separate it from the rest. Shit like this made Tekken 4 seem bad when it wasn't. Just because it introduced new mechanics. The core mechanics are still there to stop it. New core mechanics are still there to stop it. They already nerfed heat, damn it. Okay, so this person, I don't think they read what I was saying. No flame, but it's the new game 30 plus years later. They should innovate. Changing the innovation part, I don't disagree with. There are cool things to innovate on. Heat is pretty innovative. But changing something for the sake of changing something is not innovative. That is introducing variance. That is a change for the sake of novelty. That is a change for the sake of attention. It's not innovative to just take something here and move it right here, right? It's just a change for the sake of changing it. The only innovation here is it makes it easier to attack with Hwoarang. All right, is there a trend of changes with this one, or is it a lazy way to buff a string of Hwoarang? Well, I'm so glad you asked. This better work and increase the play pool, otherwise it looks like more of not understanding the players. Yeah, I agree. I was trying to duck it 5 times, yeah. More than one way to deal with them. Yeah, and that's another thing. You used to have multiple options to handle a move, depending on how good your read is. So say you read the first hit of this, you just low parry that shit, right? Or sorry, say you hard read that he's doing this string in particular. If you know for sure he's doing this, you duck and then you launch a second hit. If you have a loose idea he's going to do a low at a certain timing, you low parry. And now in this case, you could just react. The worst case where you didn't have a read at all, you could react to the first hit and duck, building up defensive skill. Now you only have one option, which is block it on a hard read or don't. Less options. Huge knowledge check for me when I started Tekken 7. Now that I can't duck and reaction to get a while standing punish, this feels awful. Yeah, and it shits on the people who took the time to learn your game. It is a weird way to treat people who took the time to understand and learn your game because of the passion for it. I don't want to really phrase it this way. I want to say something like, it is weird to take the time to understand and learn a game because of your passion for it, and then have that taken away arbitrarily. But that's how game development works. You know, they have to make hard choices. It jails now, forced to stand block. Why? Okay, screws with muscle memory. And this is where I slightly disagree. It does screw with muscle memory, and it does force. It's weird. I don't have a problem adapting, but this is a really interesting thing. The more time the really good players, Ni, Ulsan, Arslan, etc., spend time relearning muscle memory, the less we fans get to see amazing mind games, incredible strategies, and cutting-edge gameplay. These changes put us back to require... These changes are less interesting learning, in my opinion. Right? It's more of a knowledge check. Someone speaking facts really hurts. Okay, now let's look at the quotes. Here we go. The people who didn't want to reply to me. Now Mad Tekkens would have done the actual good thing. The done series would have gotten the same. Making the movement suck less. Less stiff movement that's evolved beyond the mid-90s would make Tekken own. Tekken has really good movements. Tekken is not... The reason Tekken movement feels stiff is because there's a learning curve. The reason it feels so terrible is because if you mess up, you aren't rewarded for free. That creates a level of satisfaction where you can study something and notice progression. And I think that's a cool thing. Not everybody thinks that's a cool thing, but I think it's cool to work on something and see progress. So I think being punished for making a mistake and then being rewarded for mastering a mechanic does not mean it sucks. That may be an opinion. Let's keep going. This is how I feel about Tekken 7. Yeah, Tekken 7 was already doing it. Skill issue. I don't have a problem about adapting. I already said that. And yeah, I think that covers most of what I thought, but yes, it's a concerning trend, but it's how the game is going to be. And I don't care that I have to learn. I am more sad that new people will not have the opportunity to learn the game intuitively in a fun way. They'll either get frustrated and drop the game, or they'll have to spend more time in the lab than actually fighting people. Changes like this require you to lab more and fight less. I don't think most people like that. I could be wrong. Let me know what you think in the comments. Leave a like if you think this was a great discussion. I think it's important to talk because I have my opinions, but I could be wrong. So let me know what you think. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.